Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 5 of the Corcoran Cap, the podcast where we talk about 49ers, Warriors, A's, and we're starting off today with college sports, Syracuse basketball. I'm your host, Sam Corcoran, joined by Zach Popelman to my right. Zach, how you doing today? Syracuse had one game this week. How you feeling about that?
It's always a good week when Syracuse wins, and I have a desk this week to record from, so it's looking like a good week on the podcast.
Cannot complain. Definitely have to agree with that. Yeah, Syracuse, a pretty light week for them. They only had one game. It was against Boston College, and they won 76-56 at the Dome. They played BC earlier, won again by a solid 9 points. I mean, I think the thing from this game is, Zach, I think we knew that this team was going to win. BC is really not a good team. If we're looking at their 9-16, just watching them play, you could tell that they were not that talented. I think they kept rotating guys in who, I mean, just they kept turning the ball over, sloppy play. Syracuse, I mean, they kind of gifted Syracuse that game. Much as Syracuse played well, I feel like BC playing worse impacted this game even more, in my opinion.
I mean, Syracuse, I have a lot to say about their performance. Obviously, we're going to get more into that. If we're going to talk about Boston College, they're one of the worst teams in the ACC. I mean, this is to be expected. Even against a team who is a little banged up like Syracuse, has their struggles and has their weaknesses. Like, I think this is a win we all expected. We saw them against Boston College a couple weeks ago. It is what it is.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, you kind of expected what to happen in this game. They did not take the lead at all during the game. It really just never was close. And let's start talking about the Syracuse, because that's what you guys are here for. That's where you guys are watching the pod. You want to learn about Syracuse, talk about that. So let's talk about the two guys who I want to talk about the most are Frank Anselm and Baruma Sidibe. Last game against BC, Jesse Edwards did not played a little bit, not much. So you can assume the game plan has changed. I know we talked about this last week with Edwards being out, but this is something we're going to keep talking about, Zach and I, throughout the rest of the Syracuse season, because, I mean, Edwards was such a big loss, so you kind of have to talk about him. But let's talk about Anselm and Sidibe. Zach, I'll let you start it off. What are your thoughts on those two performances?
You know what? I thought they did well. Obviously, again, weak opponent, but, they split the minutes pretty evenly. Anselm's the younger guy, so I think they gave him the start, knowing that I think he has a little bit more to prove. But Sidibe, 18 minutes, Anselm, 19 minutes. I think they both had blocks. I know Sidibe had a couple of.
Sidibe had 2 blocks. Anselm did not have a block.
All right, yeah, he stole a few good defensive plays out there, Anselm. But I know Sidibe had a couple of big blocks. He actually looked. I thought he looked better than Anselm. It's to be expected when you're 24 years old. But yeah, I thought they had good games. Actually, I was pretty surprised.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think personally, for me, I think Sidibe definitely had a better game than Anselm. Looking at on paper, I mean. He was definitely better defensively, and he was better defensively. Had more boards than Anselm. He got 18 minutes. Anselm got 19. Offensively, Anselm only had one shot, made it. It was a 3, or no, it was a.
He had a free throw. It was an
and one. It was an and one. My bad.
Yeah.
Sidibe went 1 for 3, missed both of his free throws, which I think we saw earlier against Virginia Tech. Sidibe missed some free throws, or it might have been Anselm, but free throw shooting, you're not going to get the best out of that for both of the centers.
And you really can't. I mean, both of them, you really can't expect much offensively. Edwards had a much more developed offensive game, and I think when you're moving into a period where you're not going to have Jesse Edwards, as we've discussed before, you can't expect too much offensively. And I thought the rest of the team will get there eventually. Did a good job compensating, but. They held their own, so I was pretty impressed by Anselm and Sidibe today.
Definitely, and as you said, yeah, exactly. As you said, Zach, the team. I mean, they're not going to hold themselves offensively with both centers, and that leads into the next topic I wanted to talk about. Did the game? Have you noticed the game plan change from the previous BC game to this BC game? And I think for me, it's an absolute yes. I think there's much more of an emphasis on shooting and getting the ball to the other members of the starting 5. They want them to run the offense. We saw that during the game, and that's why it's so pivotal. We talked about this last week, for all the starting 5 to kind of mesh together and keep going. I know against Virginia Tech, we had a few guys who did have some bad games, and that really brought this team down in the game. That was close throughout the end of the game until the end. But overall, I mean, you really need these guys on the other guys on the starting five to do well, especially with the upcoming schedule. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So offensively, the game plan 100% changed. I would say defensively, I mean, I think we saw a lot more. Another thing about offense, just a ton more outside scoring. It felt like a lot more threes were taken. Overall, the team.
If I could say something, I think
yeah, go ahead.
A lot of what you saw offensively with Jesse Edwards. I mean, we're not going to ever stop talking about how much this injury changes the composition of this team, especially the offense. But you did see a lot of the outside shooting, and this team relies on it a lot. But you could also see Jesse Edwards playing inside a little bit. This game, early on, it was all outside shooting, just perimeter, not necessarily perimeter shooting, but I think the first shot of the game was a fade away from Buddy. They weren't driving a lot until later in the game when they really Boston College really had to worry about the three. So I think the game is leaning a little bit even more on the three, and it's good that they're hitting their shots.
Exactly. They need to keep hitting their shots, and they did that against BC, staying above 500, which is what this team needed if they want any shot of making the tournament. Now, also defensively, that's the other point I was going to cover. I would say the perimeter D was pretty big for this team. It seemed like, I mean, maybe it's just BC going at it. BC shot 28 3-pointers, only made 5 of those with disgustingly awful 17.9% from three, only 1 3-pointer in the first half. The BC was not a good shooting team. They had to rely on the free. I remember the three. I remember the centers that they had. The 2 centers just did not play well for them. I remember number 12 on there. Post is his last name, I guess. Just could not handle the ball. I know he did well.
Quentin Post. He had a few struggles handling the ball. Obviously, I mean he's too big, but he had a few nice plays inside, and I think you did see a little bit of the weakness in the interior defense. I don't know if that's what you were getting at, but there was a play. I mean, I think they just subbed in Bolajok, so it was garbage time by then. But,
exactly.
I mean, one of their big men scored on Anselm, Bolajok, and Benny Williams all at the same time. So, I mean, this team is going to struggle on the interior, especially when we get down the line. We're going to talk about the schedule when we get down the line to bigger teams like Duke.
Exactly, 100%. And you know what? Before we do that, I want to talk about the rest of the starting five. We haven't talked about that too much. Jimmy Boeheim with 13 points and 10 boards, leading the team in rebounds. Gerard had 16. Swider and Buddy had 18. So overall, a pretty good performance. 3-point wise, this team shot very well from three. 43% throughout the game. Gerard was 50%. Boeheim had 1. Jimmy Boeheim had 1 3. Buddy was 2 for 8. That's got to go up a little bit, in my opinion. But 7-14 on other field goals. We'll take that 100%. Every time we'll take that. Swider 3 for 5. Let's talk about Jimmy Boeheim rebounding. That definitely stood out to me. And I know you only saw Anselm with a few. Anselm had 4 boards. Sidibe had 4. I mean, Zach, do you think Jimmy can kind of play a 5 role if the team really needs? I think personally, I'll let you talk about that first.
We did see that a little bit in the Boston College game. Jim ran Jimmy out there as the 5. I think he ran Torrance, Gerard, Buddy, and Swider at the 4, which it works against a team like Boston College. I'd be interested to see how that works against Duke, where Mark Williams and Paolo Banchero are both bigger than Jimmy anyways. I don't think we're going to see a lot of that, but I think against smaller teams or more mediocre teams like Boston College, you could see a little bit of that. And Jimmy's a strong enough player that he can hold his own on defensive rebounds, box outs. He plays in the post a little. I don't disagree with running a lineup like that just a little bit every game.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think you got to play small. Me being a Warriors fan, I'm all used to this small ball. It can work out well, and I think for a Syracuse team that shoots a lot and has a ton of similarities to the Golden State Warriors, actually, in my opinion. I mean, the center, they don't really rely on that for offense. It's a ton of perimeter shooting, ton of good. The defense is very similar. I think you can rely on Jimmy to play the 5. It's just the other thing, once you take Jimmy out, your next best play, besides the 4 guys that we're going to talk about, Buddy Boeheim, Jimmy Boeheim, Swider, Gerard, the next best guy is Anselm, and that's why they put Anselm in, personally. Because, I mean, you have Torrance, who isn't really – I mean, you're going to get your – like, as Zach and I like to joke about, you get your weekly layup from him. He didn't score against BC. Benny Williams still trying to learn. He's been improving a little bit, but – not by much. So, I mean, that's why they're putting Anselm in. He is the next best player besides the 4 other guys.
I actually thought Torrance had a pretty good game, but I mean, we don't really need to dive into
He did.
that.
I mean,
I
no,
thought
he had a good game. The thing about Torrance is like you look at he's a facilitator. That's what I think a lot of people are coming
yeah,
to learn. You're not going to expect any points out of him. He's a
he'll
facilitator.
he'll drive and kick, and I think that's good for our bench. But I mean, you're right. Anselm is he's still got a ways to go, but I think he really is our next guy up, and that's why Jim
Exactly.
decided to start him rather than the experienced guy in Sidibe, because I think he can. Jim trusts him to develop a little bit.
Definitely. And speaking of Torrance, 17 minutes for Torrance. That was he definitely played the most out of all the bench players besides Sidibe, who had 18 minutes, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. He's a facilitator. I think Zach and I kind of talked about this, or I might have talked about this with one of our other buddies. He's kind of like a Ben Simmons, but he's kind of like a midget Ben Simmons, like where you're not gonna expect much scoring out of him. If he does score, it's gonna be a drive to the hoop. And unfortunately for him, I mean, he really plays more like a power forward, but he's just a point guard size. Like that's really how I kind of see him.
Yeah, he's an interesting player. I'm glad he's on the team though.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at
definitely. I mean,
that.
he's been helping, so I can't really complain too much. Well, as Zach and I have been previewing this episode, this week is going to be a rough week for Syracuse. You have Georgia Tech on Monday, at Notre Dame Wednesday, and Duke on Saturday. The Duke game, obviously the biggest game of the year. And you're entering a really hard stretch of the season. After that, I know you have UNC, you got Miami as well. So I think that's how you finish the season. It's going to be this 5-game stretch is going to be rough. I think to start it off, Georgia Tech is a must-win game. This team is better than Georgia Tech. You have to win this game. It's at home. You'll have the fans in attendance. You'll have the students there. This was a game that was supposed to be in December, I believe, but got postponed due to COVID. But now you have to win this game against Georgia Tech. This is a must-win game, in my opinion.
I'm actually kind of happy that they're playing this game on Monday. Obviously, having 2 games in 3 days for a college team, that's not exactly great, especially since they're going to be traveling to South Bend. But I'm happy they're playing this team because I think this is a very winnable game. It's going to be good that they're at home, and I think it could give them some energy when they're about to go on the road against a much tougher team in Notre Dame.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Notre Dame, so Notre Dame and Duke are 1-2 in the conference. Notre Dame's at 2 with a 12-4 conference record, 19-8 overall. They should be a tournament team. Duke, obviously, I believe 9th in the country. I don't know if the new rankings came out, but they're 9th in the country last I checked. They're going to be 2 tough games. So let's just talk about what must improve if Syracuse wants any chance to stay alive. And first of all, like by saying alive, I mean like just being able to compete and making the tournament. And do you think they're going to even make the tournament, Zach, at this point? If there's any shot of that, or is the season kind of
I think there's a shot? I mean, there's always a shot. Do I think they're
never say never. This team has made miracle runs in March before.
Yeah, we'll see. But I'd like to close out the season strong, no matter what tournament we end up in.
100%. Yeah, I definitely think if this team wants to shock the world, they can do it. In my opinion, this team they've won some game. I think the Wake Forest game was a statement win against a team who's currently record-wise the only 2 teams in the ACC that have 20 wins are Duke and Wake, and that was a statement win against them, just blowing them out at home. I think that was a much needed win that they got. They've made some statement wins before. Notre Dame, I think Duke is I think the Duke game should be very close. A lot of people are predicting that. You're gonna have 35,000 in the house. It's gonna be loud. And I think the Notre Dame game, if they can somehow get away with a win at South Bend, that would be crucial. And I honestly think that would be a more important game to win than the Duke game. Hot take.
I think first thing they should do, go and watch what Wake Forest did. I guess at home, but still what they did against Notre Dame. And Wake Forest, very good team, but you look, Alondis Williams had a high-scoring game. They had another starter with a high-scoring game. That's what they need to replicate. And obviously, they're very different teams, but do what Wake Forest did against Notre Dame, and I think you have a fighting chance. Duke will be an interesting battle. We'll get there when we get there, but I think you take some notes against the teams that beat Notre Dame, and I think you have a good chance against them.
100%. And just a final note, I know we're talking about March, the ACC tournament coming up. Syracuse is currently 7th in the conference. Out of the 15-team conference, there's 7. So if they can win some of these games, they can get a much higher seed in the conference tournament. You can get some easier opponents like Clemson or BC or NC State, Georgia Tech.
You don't want to see a team like Duke, Notre Dame, Wake Forest. I'd even say UNC, Virginia. You don't want to see any of those teams until later in the tournament if you don't have to. So every game is crucial up until the ACC tournament. Every game in the ACC tournament is obviously crucial, but every game should be hard fought.
100%. Coming up, moving from college basketball to the NBA, the Warriors, the All-Star break just happened. We're going to review what happened before the All-Star break and talk about what needs to happen after it. You won't want to miss out. Welcome back. Segment 2 on this 5th episode of the Corcoran Cap. We just talked about some college basketball. Now moving on to the NBA, talking about the Golden State Warriors. I'm your host, Sam Corcoran, joined to my right by Joel, a.k.a. #1 Kuminga fan. Joel, got the shit right there. There you go. It's the All-Star game. All-Star game's tonight. It will be yesterday when you guys are watching this episode or listening to it. How you feeling going in the All-Star break for the Warriors? Or coming out of it, I should say.
Well, I feel like we needed this break because a lot of our guys looked a little fatigued, looked a little sluggish in the last couple games, especially with our lack of size. We had to ride some guys particularly hard. So coming out of the break, I'm excited. It's always a good stretch after the All-Star break. You're rested and rejuvenated, sort of a 20-game sprint to the playoffs, a 20-plus game sprint to the playoffs. So I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely. And before we talk about our All-Star break recap, that's going to be the meat of this episode. We're going to talk about some standouts, some players who need to improve, and then just team aspects that should improve or stay the same. Let's talk about the 2 games that happened this week while in the week from when we recorded to now. And those were let's start with the Clippers game. I mean, Joel, there's really we were just talking about this before the episode. There's really not much to be said about this other than the Warriors just did not do that well. You had Steph with 33. Other than that, like you had 3 other scores in the teens. The highest other score was 13 by Wiggins and Poole. Kuminga had 10. Everyone else didn't really play well. Clay especially needed to step it up. 27 minutes. You're only going to show 7 points for that. That's pretty rough. And just defensively, we were very poor against the Clippers.
The defense was terrible. Steph had 33, and 26 of those came in the first half. So second half was a disaster. The Clippers for the game shot 56% and 44% on threes. You're not going to win many games if you give up those splits to your opponent. And yeah, I mean, a lot of Kuminga's points came in garbage time. It was just an all-around just bad showing.
Exactly. And this is a Clippers team without Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, and they still played very poorly against them. Terrence Mann and Reggie Jackson leading the way. And not really what you want to have. I mean, those are good guards, but like,
no, but Terrence Mann was just, I mean, when you're getting boned by Terrence Mann just shooting off the dribble 15-footers and, you know, it's just bad. Every single person in their starting lineup put up double-digit points. They effectively had 7 guys in double digits. Isaiah Hartenstein had 9. That's just not a good recipe. It was
not really good.
They played well, give them props, and they hit a few tough shots, but a lot of sloppy closeouts, a lot of bad rotations. They took advantage of us not coming to play.
They did 100%. So definitely a good game plan to the Clippers. Kudos to them. The next game that was also in LA. The Warriors returned home Wednesday to play the Nuggets, where they lost on a buzzer beater. Heartbreaker. Who made the buzzer beater? Was that
fucking Monte Morris?
Monte Morris. Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have Jokic with 35. I think that Jokic with 35 and 17. I think that really just sums up the game for the Warriors. They got out rebounded like hell. You had Jokic.
We shot shitty. That's what it was. We shot sub 30 on threes. We shot 66% from the line. We got out rebounded by 10 boards, and we gave up 39 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, all those figures, just you can't have those. Looney, they went to a hack a Looney strategy at the end of the game. We were up, I think, 2 possessions with like 2 minutes left. Looney shot 6 free throws. He went 2 for 6. That's just not good enough. If he makes 1 or 2 more of those, you could say it's a different game. But yeah, it was a tough one.
Yeah, 100%. And overall, I mean, I think they played pretty well this game, the Warriors. Honestly, I just think Denver played a little bit better. And also the fourth quarter, Denver outscored the hell out of the Warriors.
Yeah, they outscored us by 10 in the second half. I mean, we had we had like a 15, 16 point lead at one point. They just slowly whittled it down, and then they just gut punched us at the end. I mean, Jokic was doing whatever he wanted.
Exactly. I mean, Jokic is obviously, I would say, a top 5 player in the league. So, I mean, you're gonna get some good stuff from him. But I think the Warriors could handle that a bit better. Denver, obviously, a very good team this year. They're 35-25. I believe they're 6th in the Western Conference. Definitely going to be a team that we should be seeing in the playoffs. In my opinion, we could definitely see them in the playoffs, especially if we're going to fall in the standings to Memphis, who Memphis is really catching up to us right now, which is something that I think we have to worry about. I think earlier it was going to be a race between Phoenix and us, but now you're looking at a race between Memphis and us for the 2 seed.
I think Phoenix has pulled ahead. Phoenix and Memphis, both, you look at strength of schedule for the rest of the year, they have much easier schedules than we do. So I think you would see, I mean, unless we get a Booker or Paul injury, which you can't rule out because Paul is, 36, and he doesn't exactly he has a somewhat spotty track record of being healthy.
He does.
But unless one of those guys gets hurt, I don't really see a scenario where they don't finish first. I think we only have a 1.5 game on Memphis as far as the 2 seed goes. And like I said, they have a way easier schedule than us. So, yeah, I think we got to lock in and try and get this 2 seed. I think it'll be a big advantage. We don't want to have to go through Memphis or Phoenix in the playoffs. We hopefully just want to have to run through Phoenix and run every other series.
Yeah, if the Warriors, I'll just say it right now, I think the thing is, if we want to run through the playoffs, we're going to have to probably run into both of those teams. Since you're going to have, in the second round, you're going to have Memphis. If the standings stay the same, second round, you're probably going to have Memphis.
Yeah.
Western Conference Finals. Assuming we get through the first round, Western Conference Finals, you're going to have Phoenix. So you're probably going to have to play both of those teams. The question is, can you get home court advantage? Because that would be crucial. Especially, I think Memphis's home court advantage is one of the most underrated in the league. You definitely do not want to play most of your games for a series in Memphis.
I remember that play-in game last year, San Antonio, Memphis. Memphis got down big, but that home crowd, they kept them gassed up. Yeah, they've got an underrated home court. I mean, even back when the grit and grind days, I mean, that you never wanted to play.
Oh, Memphis. The grit and grind days. I mean, I remember
we had series in Memphis. I remember the year we first won our ring, we had to go through Memphis, and those crowds got loud.
It was a 6-game series too.
Yeah,
it was very loud crowd. They have a very good home court advantage, and I mean, honestly, I think the thing with the Warriors, obviously, home court advantage is nice, but Chase home court advantage is nothing compared to Oracle home court advantage.
No, but to be fair, we haven't seen playoff games in this arena, and hopefully people who are showing up to those will appreciate that.
That is true.
We saw, especially at the earlier portion of the year when we started off 18-2 and we were just throwing haymakers at teams, those crowds would get loud. I mean, obviously, they're nothing to Oracle. Oracle crowds are in a league of their own, but I am optimistic as a Chase Center playoff atmosphere is going to be. I feel like it'll be good, but it's obviously not the same.
100%. Well, those were the games this week, and as Joel said, I think the Warriors team needed a break, and they got the All-Star break. So let's talk about. Yep. Let's just recap what's been going on before the All-Star break and what needs to change besides the All-Star break. So I'll start with you, Joel. Who are some players that need to improve coming out of the All-Star break? Let's talk about some negativity first.
Okay, let's get negative. Wiggins start coming into this. I'm not too mad at him. He's a total workhorse. He hasn't missed many games in his career. There were some moments in these last couple of games where I saw him slipping, especially on the defensive end, and he was a little less consistent on offense. I feel like this break was much needed for him. We need him to come back to a defensive stopper, efficient mid to high teens points per games. Otto Porter Jr., I love him as a rebounder, and I love the size he brings as a forward. His threes have been a little more shaky as of late. I feel like we need to get back to a point of him being a 40% shooter or very high 30s. Jordan Poole, even up until this point, it's kind of he has a reputation as a shooter. His threes have not been going in very well as of late. I feel like if we could get back to a point of him being at least reliable on standstill catch and shoot threes and being reliable as a secondary playmaker without Draymond until we get Draymond back, obviously. Those are the ones that come to mind as guys that need to improve. And I mean, I'm not going to highlight Clay. I guess Clay had been playing better up until late. He's had a few shaky games, but I think with Clay, it's just more and more reps. He's going to get even more and more consistent.
100%. I think Wiggins, I mean, the last two games, just looking at the games going into the All-Star break, he had 13 against the Clippers, and Denver, he played a lot worse. I accidentally took down the box score. But overall, I think
he against Denver had 9 points and on 12 shots. He was 1 of 5 on threes, and he did not shoot any free throws. That's not
good. Definitely not a good sign. And overall, I mean, he's starting the All-Star game tonight, has not been playing like an All-Star, period, recently, in my opinion.
No, but I think it's a short stretch of him not playing like an all-star. I feel like, I mean, he's a great athlete. And like I said, he's had a history of playing long stretches of games in each season. He doesn't really get hurt. He played, I think, all but 1 or 2 games last year. He's just, he's very durable. So I think this break will just give him a good opportunity. And like, nobody takes the All-Star game too serious. So
exactly.
Rest up the joints, take
it's nice. I think it's a nice confidence booster for him. Honestly, you're starting this, you're all-star starter, playing for a team. Yeah, good player. You're playing with Joel Embiid. Durant, actually, I just found out his grandma died, unfortunately, so he will not be at the All-Star game.
Oh, what? Oh,
yeah. Even though it's his team, that sucks.
Yeah.
Prayers to him. But overall, I mean, I think it will be a good confidence booster for Wiggins. I mean, Durant being there, I think he would have mentored him. Obviously, he's not going to be there, unfortunately. But overall, you're going to still have some great stars out there working. You're going to be talking smack to Curry, who's on the other team, I believe. I bet LeBron's going to get in on that, have some fun with it. So it'll be fun for him. But overall, I definitely think he's the one guy who really needs to improve. Other than that, I mean, I honestly think the bench has been phenomenal against Denver. You had Kuminga with 12, Poole with 15, Porter with 10. Those were the bench players who played.
Even though I dissed Poole and said even though I said Poole needed to improve, the game against Denver, he was good. He was good against Denver.
Yeah, he's been on and off. I think that's the one thing. I think you're looking for a bit more consistency from Jordan Poole.
And to give him a little bit of credit, he's not even 23 years old yet. He has played seasons, but I mean, the first year was basically a lost year. So last year was his first true year playing with Steph. I think as just time goes, he'll grow into a more consistent player. But yeah, I mean, that's what we need. We just need a little more steadiness. And turnovers, he was not great last game. He had 3 turnovers. Just being a steady secondary guard as a playmaker. I mean, just having – because we don't have a primary ball handler guard that acts as a playmaker. It's kind of – we've seen Clay step up as a playmaker. Steph's always been good. We just need Poole to – not turn the ball over as much and just, make the right reads.
Yeah, and I think turnovers, I think the 2 things that need to improve coming out of the All-Star break team-wise are turnovers and rebounds. Rebounding especially, I mean, you look at Denver, they out-rebounded the hell out of us. And, I mean, our main primary rebounder is Kevon Looney. And, we were talking about this on the Syracuse segment with Zach. Syracuse and the Warriors have a very similar team where they run through the perimeter. That's where they score. Their perimeter D is key. And then the inside, they don't use that. They don't rely on it too much. But when they have to, they can. And I think that's what I think Looney needs to bring that presence too, because the center depth on the Warriors, same with Syracuse too, not deep at all.
No, but I think one thing that the Warriors have looking forward to in the coming weeks is that we should be getting some bigger bodies back, which could improve interior defense and rebounding and also playmaking and just this. We've been sort of on a 3-point drought the last couple of games. Our shooting has not been as good. Draymond, even though he's not a shooter, helps with that because he, in split-second, intervals can find open shooters better than pretty much all the other guys we have on our team playing right now. So I think there's definite things to look forward to coming out of the break as far as getting the troops back.
Yeah, definitely. And I overall think that this team can really kind of bear down, especially towards the start of the break. You look at their schedule coming out of the break. I mean, it's definitely kind of tough, but I think they can. I think Portland is going to be a good first game to have at Portland. If you can get a win there, that'll kind of put you back on track. After that, you're going to have Dallas, I think they're the 4 seed right now, maybe the 5 seed.
I like that we're starting off on the road because it gives us an opportunity to not play a great team in Portland. They've had some moments lately. What's his name? The guy. He's the guard.
Anthony Simmons.
Anthony Simons. Yeah, Anthony Simons. He's been really good as of late after they've traded McCollum. But you're on the road, so you don't get as much of a leeway of having the home crowd to juice you up. You need to come in motivated. I feel like that's a good first test. Then you get to come back home, get a couple days off. That game's on Thursday. Next game's on Sunday against Dallas. I like that the games are spaced out. It's Thursday the 24th, Sunday the 27th, Tuesday March 1st.
Yeah,
Thursday,
and then you got a 4-game
3rd.
road trip after that Dallas game. A pretty tough road trip, too, in my opinion. You have Minnesota, you have Dallas, Lakers. I mean, they're in a playoff spot right now, playing spot. You have LeBron.
Look, the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers are going to be motivated to play against us. We saw that last game.
They're not going to have AD though.
That's true. That is true.
Which is, I think that's a big gain for the Warriors. And then you finish the trip off at Denver, a team who the Warriors just lost a heartbreaker to. That could be a tough game. I think Denver matches up really well against us.
And you never like playing in Denver for freaking altitude. It gives Denver a big home field advantage.
Exactly. And the Warriors, they lost to Denver already.
We're 0-2 against Denver this year.
They're 0-2 against Denver. Yeah, they were going to have back-to-back against Denver. The other one got postponed. So that would be a statement win if they can win that. That is on Monday, March 7th, the time that the next episode will be coming out.
We played Denver twice in the span of a couple of days. We have March 7th against the Nuggets. Then we come back home and play the Clippers on a back-to-back. And then 2 days later, we go back to Denver again to play them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Denver game on March 7th was the one that got postponed and rescheduled. But
I don't know which one was which. But
I don't know. I think I feel like they wouldn't want to have back-to-back and go like Denver, Clippers, Denver, at Denver. So
no, there's no way that was originally what was planned, like you said.
Oh, no, 100%
It was a COVID postponed game that just happened to line up the way it did.
100%. Well, coming up, segment 3, we're moving to the 49ers free agency, a 20-minute segment, guys. You're not going to want to miss out for part 1 out of the 4 parts of our free agency preview, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to segment 3 on episode 5 of the Corcoran Cap. Here to talk about the San Francisco 49ers on this special 20-minute segment. We're going into free agency, previewing some of the positions. I'm your host, Sam Corcoran. To my right is Rohit Kannan. Rohit, it's a big offseason for the Niners. Coming off the NFC Championship, we're here to talk about running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. I mean, how important do you think these needs are for the 49ers?
I think all 3 of those needs are huge. I mean, it's pretty much now a transition from Garoppolo to Lance at quarterback, and now with Lance you're getting a quarterback who can do a lot more things than what Garoppolo could do, and so now it's time to kind of like gear up an offense that can cater to Lance's strengths and perhaps become a more explosive offense than the 49ers offense that already was.
Exactly, and I definitely think. As you just said, this offense is not going to be as limited anymore, and I think you can definitely get more guys, more risky guys, because I think you swung for the fence with Lance's in the draft. You swung for the fences with that trade. You got to keep swinging for the fences. This team is preparing to go all in with Trey Lance, and you got to take some risk around him. Yeah, you can play it safe, but I think that's really what you have to do, and I think a lot of that comes in free agency. Obviously, the draft, whenever you take a guy, you're really taking a risk with that because you never really know how he's going to turn out. But free agency, you're always taking risk, whether it be spending a lot of money or going the cheap side and taking a guy who may not be as good as some other guys, but you believe in him. You believe that he's going to do well. Or as I said, you're going to be paying a guy a ton of money. Could be very risky, especially if he doesn't pan out. So it's a crucial offseason for the 49ers. And I think the support that Lance is going to get with his weapons is going to be the biggest part. And this is why we're starting it with part 1. We're going to talk about some running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And let's just jump into it with, in my opinion, the most important position for the 49ers offense, running back. This is a position that Kyle Shanahan has thrived against. And usually I say that Kyle Shanahan can work with any running back he wants. But I really feel like with Trey Lance, I think it's very important to get a guy who can work with Trey Lance well and who can build with him well.
Yeah. And I think when you look at the guys we have on the roster currently, with guys like Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, and I'm not even sure if I should count Deebo Samuel here. He can throw, he can run, he can catch. The only thing we haven't seen him do is play offensive line, and for all we know, he's probably done that too.
He probably can do that. Yeah, it's a very important position. You can use running backs in a lot of ways. And I have some very versatile guys I think we can bring in. But let's just talk about who we currently have on this team going into free agency and looking at the upcoming free agents. there's 4 guys at running back: Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Trenton Cannon, and JaMychal Hasty. And out of those 4 guys, I think the only 2 that I would keep is Jeff Wilson and Trenton Cannon. Jeff Wilson, I think it's good to have a veteran presence on the team. He's been on this team since 2018. Just has done pretty well. He's a bit injury prone, but he's been able to come back and do really well for this team. Should be a very cheap signing. You bring, yeah, exactly. He can catch the ball. Great pass catcher, which I think is another crucial part for the Shanahan system. And this is a common theme with a lot of the running backs I have. Lance is a running can run himself. So I think a lot more pass catchers is going to be something that you're going to see with the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously could not really run. So that's where you had pure workhorse running backs. Whereas with Lance, I think you're going to get some pass catchers. And I think Jeff Wilson can do that. The other reason that I said Trenton Cannon, I think you really need some special teams help, especially when it comes to the kick return game. Now, will we get a better kick returner? Probably, but Trenton Cannon also can provide stuff at the gunner position. He can do a lot on special teams. It was a weak special teams last year, and he was probably one of our better guys there.
Yeah. When he did return, a lot of his returns were special, and I honestly think that if he didn't get injured in that second Seattle game, our special teams probably would have been a bit better going towards the end of the season rather than hitting that wall that we did. So, I mean, bringing Cannon back honestly wouldn't be a bad idea.
Not at all. And that's a cheap signing, too. That is a minimum deal, basically. You're not paying him that much. Raheem Mostert, I'm letting him walk. He is way too unreliable, in my opinion. And as some people like to say, availability is the best ability. You cannot rely on Raheem Mostert. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people praise him. I know a lot of people love him. And I just don't think you can bring him back with the injury history he's had. I mean, he's torn up his knee so many times. I just don't see it. I think his career honestly could be over at this point.
Which is because, I mean, he's talented.
Oh, he's a talented guy. And, you could see them bring him back on a minimum deal, but it's also hard to just run a system with Raheem Mostert in it when the odds are he's going to get hurt. And you're going to need to find another guy. You need guys who need to be there and able to play. That's why I know Elijah Mitchell has been injury prone. But not as injury prone as Raheem Mostert. I mean, all the running backs have been injury prone, and that's why you're looking for free agency to bring in some more guys, and probably the draft too. I said it the other week. I think Trey Sermon's a better back than Raheem Mostert for this team, simply because he's more reliable on the field when it comes to availability. I think
Sermon can bring a lot more with pass catching too in comparison to Mostert.
Definitely, I totally agree with that. And as for JaMychal Hasty, I just don't think he's going to be brought back because of his fumbling problem. Shanahan doesn't like that. We didn't really see much of him, so I think he's out the window. And you can get better guys. Now, who are some of these guys? Oh, and just for the record, everybody, we're talking about just free agency. We're not going to talk about draft prospects just yet. That's going to be for after free agency down the line. Come April, we'll be talking all draft content, so you guys will not want to miss out on that. Make sure to subscribe, follow us on Twitter, do all that for some draft content. But some guys that we can bring in. So I'm going to start with the 3 guys who I think would fit the system best. And the top guy is Cordarrelle Patterson. I tweeted about him, and I know some people are like, oh, he's too expensive. Why have 2 Deebo Samuels? Why the hell not, dude? That's going to scare the hell out of defenses. Imagine how lethal that combo is. I think Cordarrelle Patterson, who is a guy that Shanahan has gone after before, apparently went after him in 2021 offseason before he broke out with Atlanta. This is a guy who is perfect for our system. And if we get him, that could be one of the best signings of this offseason. Honestly, I think that would be the best signing for the 49ers this offseason. And that's really the one guy that I would love to see on this 49ers team. Will it be expensive? Yes, but it's another lethal weapon to this offense. And if you can build your offense with Cordarrelle Patterson, Deebo Samuel, Trey Lance, Cordarrelle Patterson and Deebo Samuel are just offensive weapons. They're kind of positionless players. Trey Lance, I mean, a lot of people have been saying he's more of a running back than a quarterback. I disagree. He definitely has that running back ability, but he's definitely a quarterback. I think Cordarrelle Patterson would be the best fit for this team, and I'll let you talk about him before I get into.
What's better than having one wide back? Having 2 wide backs. So bring in Cordarrelle Patterson. Let's have some fun.
Exactly. That simple. 2 other guys I think could fit the Cordarrelle Patterson role on the cheaper side. Ty Montgomery of the New Orleans Saints, former receiver, now a running back, and J.D. McKissic. He's very heavily in the pass game in Washington. Also a former Seahawk, knows the Pete Carroll system. So that helps with some intel. So I think J.D. McKissic would be a great guy to bring in.
Yeah,
And I think
honestly,
some
like,
other guys.
If we can't get Patterson, I'd love to get McKissick, mostly because again, the pass catching ability, and that just brings in more more avenues to like get yards, especially in third and short, third and medium, where more often than not, especially with the receivers we got now with Debo breaking out, Brandon Ayuk coming into form, and George Kittle being George Kittle. Those guys are going to be heavily covered. So if you can just get a guy kind of just leak out of the backfield, get open. I mean, yeah, sure, we have Juice, but again, everybody knows that Juice is a receiving threat. So we can have another guy and then when you have and then you also have a running back who's a receiving threat. So that's already 5 guys who you're going to have to cover at all times. Someone's going to be bound to get open. If you get a legitimate receiving threat running back, good luck stopping this Niners offense.
100%. And I think definitely getting a pass catching running back would be huge. Another guy who is somewhat used in the pass game, but more in the run game, that I think would be a fantastic guy to get is Justin Jackson of the Los Angeles Chargers. He played under Anthony Lynn, was the RB2 behind Austin Eckler. Eckler was more of the workhorse there. He was very involved in the pass game, and that's kind of like your ideal Kyle Shanahan fit. Him or Christian McCaffrey. We'll talk about Christian McCaffrey in a sec. Could be a trade target, but I think Justin Jackson would be a great fit in the system. He played under Anthony Lynn, did pretty well there. I've seen some other Niners fans put him out there, so that's another guy. Other than that, I think the other guys I have wrote out right now, Matt Breida, former Niner. He hasn't really. I mean, he's kind of like your low guy. He's probably going to be an RB3, but he knows the system. Did pretty well here. He got put in the doghouse towards the end, which is why I'm not sure we're going to bring him back. But never say never. Marlon Mack is a guy that has always been linked to the 49ers. I think this offseason it could happen. Again, not a guy too involved with the pass game, more of the run game guy, but overall could very much help this team. I think the best guy available is Leonard Fournette. I think you're probably not going to go after him. I think you can get a better fit for cheaper, like Cordell Patterson. I think that's such a better fit. And then some other guys I wrote down, Sony Michel and Malcolm Brown. Michelle had a pretty decent season with the Rams. Malcolm Brown, a former Ram, probably going to be your RB3 there. But Sony Michel can come and be an RB1. Still a young guy, developed a lot last year under the Rams. Didn't really develop with the Patriots, was a first-round pick. I think there's a lot of upside for a guy like Sony Michel. Again, another guy that could be on the expensive side, and you probably want Cordell Patterson instead of him. But out of those guys I just listed, I would say Justin Jackson is probably the best fit.
Yeah. I mean, another name to watch out for, just in case, would probably be someone like Melvin Gordon, who, again, very much more used in the run game than in the pass game. And he's on his – he's on the older side. He's 29, but he's a unrestricted free agent coming off a 918-yard rushing season for the Broncos. And honestly, he's one of the bigger backs in the NFL. So, I mean – If we need another bigger body in the backfield, I mean, that might be an option to explore. I'm not sure if the Niners are going to do it. He'll be more on the more expensive side, but it's interesting.
Another guy that played under Anthony Lynn, too.
Oh, yeah. I kind of forgot about that part.
So that's definitely a good signing. I didn't really write him down because I think I'm so locked in on Cordell Patterson. I think Justin Jackson could be a cheaper option. And for the fact that Melvin Gordon kind of fell out of the Los Angeles system under Anthony Lynn, it went more to Austin Eckler, which is why I wrote him out. But never say never to a guy like Melvin Gordon. Now, as for trade targets, I think you just got to keep in free agency. If you're going to use draft capital on a running back, use it in the draft instead of trading. I know people say Christian McCaffrey. First of all, we don't really have a first-round pick. That's what he's probably going to go for. Maybe a second-round pick because of his injury. Speaking of his injury, I don't want Raheem Mostert. I don't want Christian McCaffrey. Just way too unreliable and way too expensive. That contract that's one of the worst in the NFL. It's looking like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good idea to pay running backs really, really large amounts of money. You're kind of seeing the effects of it with the Giants paying Saquon Barkley, who again has been linked to the Niners as a trade target. To which I'm saying, absolutely not, because again, injury history. And then you're seeing with Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, that contract is absurd.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You really just cannot do that, in my opinion. So that's all we have for running backs. Moving on,
players getting their money, but come on.
Exactly. I mean, there's some ridiculous contracts, especially for running backs. that you can just not trade for him. Moving on, let's talk about wide receivers. I said this was going to be 20 minutes. We're probably going to go over. You know what? I don't care. We're here to talk about wide receivers and tight ends. Get this done. I'm going to make this quick. 49ers upcoming free agents. You got 4 of them. Mohamed Sanu, Trent Sherfield, Juwan Jennings, Richie James. Juwan Jennings is an ERFA. It's like some sort of restricted free agent. You have to bring him back. He's your 3rd best receiver. He developed a lot last year. I think he's a fantastic fit under Trey Lance. I think he did pretty well with him in training camp and practice. Definitely bring him back. Mohamed Sanu would be a great veteran presence to have on the team. I think Debo's really taken that step forward with that veteran presence. He's entering his 4th year in the league. So if you don't bring him back, it's fine. But, Sanu had a pretty good year with us, in my opinion. Knows the Shanahan system. I think he can bring it back. Trent Sherfield, Richie James, don't really care about.
Yeah, I mean, Sherfield might be an interesting guy to bring back. I think Jennings is a must. He started really getting to that Kendrick Bourne type of role towards the later end of the season. Plus, as an exclusive rights free agent, if we offer him a league minimum, he can't really sign anywhere else. But
Juwan Jennings
Richie
should
James,
be back on
I'd
the
honestly
team.
like to bring him back as returner, but I'm not sure if he really fits into the passing game now.
I'm glad you brought that up because I disagree with that, and because there are so many better kick returners out there. And let's just talk about that. I mean, I brought up Cordero Patterson in the running back view. That's another thing I forgot to say about him. There's some other pretty good kick returners. I wrote down 3 here, I believe. Jakeem Grant with the Bears had a fantastic season kick returning, former Dolphin. Deontay Harris is a restricted free agent in New Orleans. He has been doing really well kick returning. We also brought up Trenton Cannon last time, also can kick return. And the other guy made the Pro Bowl on special teams, Braxton Berrios of the New York Jets. I think those are 3 guys. And I'll bring up another guy who I really wanted last year, also the New York Jets, Keelan Cole. I really wanted this guy last year to be a kick returner, to be a wide receiver 3 possibly. Did he have the best year with the Jets? No. But I think the sign that he went to a not Mike McDaniel offense, Mike LaFleur offense, who was under Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, you're going to get that link there. I think it could really work out for him under Kyle Shanahan. And Keelan Cole, I think, would be a cheap option at free agency. Get him as a kick returner.
Keelan Cole's free agent? I thought he still had like a year left on his contract.
He was on a 1-year deal.
Oh, that's actually surprising.
But yeah, I think there's better kick returners out there than Richie James, which is why I do not want to bring him back.
And that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, Keelan Cole is probably like an interesting name to bring up. I'm not sure if we'll go for him specifically, but that'd be a solid pickup. I think Jakeem Grant, Deontay Harris, and Braxton Berrios are probably all staying with their current teams, especially Harris, because if he's a restricted free agent, New Orleans can just slap a 2nd-round tender on him. Nobody's going to touch him because signing him means you're giving up a 2nd-round pick. And I'm not sure that.
Oh, he's like a
2nd-round pick.
Like
you probably get him in a trade for less.
Exactly. You can get a better kick returner, wide receiver guy in the 2nd round of the draft for that. And honestly, if we don't sign a kick returner in free agency, that's fine. I think we can find someone in the draft. I haven't looked at the wide receivers too much, but usually you can always find a good kick returner out of there. Deontay Harris, undrafted free agent, has turned into a phenomenal kick returner. Now, other guys to fill up the depth. I mean, I think this is the deepest 49ers receivers crew we've had since I can remember. You have Debo wide receiver 1. You don't really know what he is. Ayuk wide receiver 2. Jennings wide receiver 3. Possibly Mohamed Sanu at wide receiver 4. And I think looking at some free agents, you really could go all over the place with wide receiver. I'm gonna name a few guys, and I think you could really go all over. They're kind of all over the place right now. I think one guy who would be a cheap option, who played under Anthony Lynn, former Los Angeles Ram, Josh Reynolds. When he was under Lynn in Detroit, he did really well. Did not do well in Tennessee before then. Did really well with the Rams. I think that's a fantastic option to have on this 49ers team. A guy under Anthony Lynn, I think he would work out really well. I think I talked about him a bit last year too. Would be a great wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 option for this team. Another guy you can get intel from the division, Christian Kirk, probably a bit more on the expensive side. I don't really know what Arizona's doing with their receivers right now. They have so many guys out there, so they're going to have to let some of their guys go. Christian Kirk could be one of those. Rashad Higgins, there was a report today that Rashad Higgins is probably going to walk of the Cleveland Browns in free agency. They might let him walk, so that's another guy you can get. DJ Chark is another guy you can get coming off an ACL injury, could be a bit cheaper. We've seen him thrive in the past. If that's a cheap signing, I think you take that and go all in with that. That could be phenomenal. The two other guys I want to bring up, I'll bring up three guys. First of all, Mike Williams. I don't think there's a shot we're getting him. I think he's a bit too expensive, but never say never. He would be a phenomenal fit for this team. Two other guys I just want to bring up real quick. I'm going through this really quick. I apologize, Rohit, but I'll let you speak. Allen Robinson and Juju Smith-Schuster. Both had down years. We've seen them thrive in the past. Juju went for $8 million last year. Or maybe it was $7 million. And he's going to go for less. Coming off an ACL injury, you're probably looking at the $5 million range for Juju Smith-Schuster, which could be a very, very good signing for the 49ers. And as for Allen Robinson, I know the Bears tagged him last year. That's a very expensive signing, but he underperformed a lot. It could have been because of Nagy, so he might stay with the Bears under Matt Eberflus. But I think it would be a phenomenal fit in San Francisco. I know we've talked about him for a while. I mean, you just need to give Lance all the weapons he needs. I think scheme fit is obviously important, but the better the weapon, the better Lance will be. And Allen Robinson, we've seen him thrive in the past. He is starting to reach the peak of his career, which could be a bit of a risk, so you don't want to overpay him. But could be very cheap. Same with Juju Smith-Schuster and DJ Chark.
And the thing is, some scheme can make certain talents better than what they can be or are. But sometimes talent is scheme. And with guys like Robinson, like that's a risk you'll probably be more willing to take. I would be willing to shell out a bit more money for a guy like Allen Robinson. Because I'm sorry, if you're able to put up numbers with Blake Bortles in Jacksonville, you got talent.
Exactly. I mean,
those Jaguars teams were awful. And Robinson was still putting up numbers. He was still respected as one of the better wide receivers in football.
I mean, he makes Mitch Trubisky look good. He made Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky look good. If he can do that, he can damn well make Trey Lance look good. So
he's quarterback proof, and I think the only reason he had a down year was because of Matt Nagy being Matt Nagy and the complete quarterback carousel that was going on in Chicago. Starting Andy Dalton, then going to Fields, Fields getting hurt, leading to Dalton coming back in, and then Dalton getting hurt again for Fields to come back in and then get hurt again. It was a mess. And
it's not going to be like this year in San Fran. So I definitely think you can bring him in. It would just be a much more comfortable place for him.
Yeah. Chark and Juju, I'm a bit more hesitant, mostly because, again, ACL injuries are all very vastly different. Sometimes there's a bit more ligament damage and tendon damage than you recognize. Sometimes there might be a second ligament torn as well. So with guys like Chark and Juju, I want to see like how they're actually progressing coming off the ACL before I actually really want to commit any money to it. Because sometimes coming off the ACL, you will move really stiff. And Shanahan really likes his guys to be able to move fluidly in terms of running routes. And
definitely.
And that's something just watch out for those guys. And with Kirk, he has a really good rapport with Kyler Murray. And if Kyler Murray stays, I think Kirk stays.
Yeah, I definitely think Christian Kirk will probably stay if Kyler Murray stays. I definitely agree with Juju and Chark. I think you definitely have to do some cheap stuff with them. If you're going to go after them, just keep it cheap with them. So, I mean, you might not go after that. That's why I brought up Josh Reynolds. I think that's a very ideal option for the 49ers. And that's why I brought up Rashard Higgins. And speaking of Rashard Higgins, I kind of want to talk about that a bit more. Mainly just with the Cleveland Browns. It seems like Jarvis Landry tweeted out some stuff today. He could be on the trade block. Not a free agent, could be on the trade block. That would be a phenomenal fit for the 49ers. You know, I think under Cleveland, he hasn't really performed too well. I know it's a very run-heavy offense, which is probably why his numbers haven't looked good. But I think you can get him for a very cheap price, maybe a fifth, which would be phenomenal for the 49ers. If you get Jarvis Landry for that price, you take that up 100 times out of 100. I think Jarvis Landry could fit this team very well. So that is a trade target to watch out for.
Yeah, I agree.
All right,
He's talented. He's talented. He can run all the routes. He has some of the safest hands in football. You actually just give him a chance, and he'll prove a lot of people right.
Exactly. All right, we're probably going to reach the 30-minute mark on this, but I don't care. We got to move on to tight ends. We'll make this part quick. There's only one 49ers free agent, Ross Dwelley. Can we agree that we're not bringing back Rohith?
We are not bringing him back.
Okay. That's all that needs to be said about that. Charlie Warner's kind of taking a spot. We can get more guys in the draft and the free agent. I mean, this tight end class for free agency is very stacked. I mean, you're really looking for a guy who can be the Jordan Reed or / Garrett Selleck 2.0. Somewhere right there, receiving tight end. I think that's really what you're looking for. I think under Trey Lance, it would help a lot to get another tight end. And it's a very stacked class, in my opinion. And I'm just going to go through. I'm going to just start with the top two guys that I want. David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns and Tyler Conklin of the Minnesota Vikings. Both had very good seasons. Tyler Conklin, his season went more noticed. David Njoku had a very underrated season, a great pass catcher. David Njoku's great in the blocking game as well. I think he would be the ideal fit. I actually have three guys now that I think that. David Njoku is one of them. Tyler Conklin, I think, is a phenomenal guy for the pass catching game. Did pretty well under Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. They just switched their head coach. It's now an offensive-minded head coach, which might convince him to stay in Minnesota. So I don't know how likely it is to get him. Also could go for a lot of money this year offseason after his career year. The other guy who I actually think would be the ideal fit for the 49ers, along with David Njoku, is Ricky Seals-Jones of the Washington Commanders. I think there are better players out there than him, but when you talk about fit, I think he would fit this team the best.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also throw in another name in there because I'm pretty sure he's a free agent. If not, we could probably get him for pretty cheap during a trade. O.J. Howard from Tampa.
He is a free agent, and that's another name I wrote down.
Yeah, I mean, and I think he's one of the better blockers in this tight end class. So again, get another guy who can block, and he's no slouch in the pass catching game. I just think honestly, the only reason we haven't seen much of O.J. Howard in 2020 and 2021 is quite literally because you got Gronk. Why are you going to throw to anybody else when you have Gronk?
Exactly. Speaking of Gronk, he is a free agent. Could go after him. Imagine teaming up Kittle and Gronk on the same team. That would be so fun.
Oh, that would be fun.
That would be very fun. I don't know how much money he's going to go for, but Gronk could be another guy. Speaking of a guy who I don't know how much money he's going to go for, and I think he could get overpaid, is CJ Uzama of the Cincinnati Bengals, especially after that Super Bowl run. Cincinnati uses I kept telling people last year, Cincinnati loves to use their tight end. Joe Burrow loves targeting his tight ends. And you saw it this year with CJ Uzama finally getting a good tight end. Drew Sample really wasn't it last year. I mean, Uzama went down in the ACL injury. Drew Sample didn't really do much. I thought if Pitts was there at 5, they would have 100% taken him over Jamar Chase. And obviously worked out with Jamar Chase, but CJ Uzama could get an overpay from Cincinnati, which is why I'm not willing to go after him. Other guys, I think I wrote.
Plus, again, injury history. I don't really want to go after Uzama, mostly because, yes, it's an ACL sprain, but sometimes sprains can sometimes lead to something worse, especially if they're not rehabbed properly.
Exactly, and he's coming off a torn ACL back in 2020.
Oh, geez.
So that could, he did tear his ACL back in 2020, so that could be a big concern. The other two guys I wrote down, probably at the bottom of this, Hayden Hurst. I mean, I probably would not want him, honestly, but I might as well just put him out there. He's done somewhat well in the pass game. I think a lot of people are putting him out there because he's a first rounder. I'm just putting him out there because he's really like the bottom tier of your tight end twos, in my opinion. I'm not really factoring in that draft position thing. And Gerald Everett, that's the guy I wanted last year, former Ram, former Seahawk. Could very well be a tight end too for this team. I don't think Seattle used him a lot. They never really do use their tight ends. I think he could be utilized very well in San Francisco.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's about who you think is going to fit the scheme and who you can actually get for the right price. Honestly, I don't think any of these guys are really worth overpaying or shelling at top dollar for. It's not like the wide receiver class where there are a lot of guys who you're willing to maybe overpay a bit just to get them on the roster. I don't see anybody like that for the tight ends.
Exactly. I mean, it's a pretty deep class. Oh, two other guys I did not mention that are hiding on my list. Dalton Schultz, I think, could be an overpay, which is why I didn't talk about him. The other guy is Jared Cook. I actually think that would be a good one. You get some veteran presence. I know Kittle's. No, Jared Cook was on the Chargers last year. Did pretty well with them.
Oh.
He's starting to reach the end of his career, which is why he's kind of in that tight end 2 category. But a veteran presence, a pass-catching veteran presence would be very nice to this team. I know Kittle's a veteran at this point, but, I mean, Jared Cook's also a very good tight end, and I think he could fit this team very well. Ideally for me, again, David Njoku, Tyler Conklin, Ricky Seals-Jones. I would probably put Jared Cook maybe 4 or 5. O.J. Howard's up there. I think it's definitely tough. I think any of these guys I would be happy with. besides maybe Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is probably the worst of the worst. The worst of those guys.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like guys like Howard and Joku, Seals Jones, like those guys. Like I'd be pretty interested in seeing bringing them in for the right price.
100%. Well, we had a fun time talking free agency here. Now we're going to have a fun time talking about the Oakland A's and some memories that Jake and I have made in the past with this team. You guys are not going to want to miss out. It's a very fun segment. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Segment number 4 on this 5th episode of the Corcoran Cap, talking about baseball. I'm your host, Sam Corcoran. To my right is Jake Hart. Jake, still pretty at a time for baseball. Trying to get back into things, talk about it. How we doing, though? How we doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. As we were just talking about off air, I mean, the Players Association, the MLB is meeting right now. So would love to break some breaking news and then be able to get into free agency and stuff in the next episode. But fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Obviously, the lockout's still intact. We don't know how far that's going to be carried on, but hopefully spring training's on the way. Hopefully we'll get the bats going soon. But I thought for today's episode, Jake, I think it would be a good idea to take a step back from talking about news and let's take the trip down to memory lane. Obviously, you and I are massive A's fans, as you can tell by me having as the co-host of the pod, me doing this podcast. And I thought we'd just talk about like kind of how we became A's fans to start it off, and we can talk about like some moments down the line. So I'll start off with you, obviously. Like, how did you become an A's fan? Where did your love from baseball come from, and how did that happen?
I mean, really, obviously, it came from my parents. We had season tickets ever since I can remember, and it was just so fun to be able to go and on like when you're really little and there's school nights and you get to stay up late and go to the games, and obviously when again like being introduced to the game, things like fireworks, and the A's were pretty bad when I was when I was in my infant stages of baseball watching, but still learned to love that underdog mentality. So that was definitely how I got introduced to it.
Yeah, me too. I think when I talk about sports, I know a lot of you guys out there know me for my presence on like 49ers. Sometimes for Warriors, a lot for Syracuse as well. But A's is where it really all started off. I mean, my dad. So I'm born and raised in Oakland. My parents are both from Massachusetts. So they kind of started off with the Red Sox, show me some Red Sox games. And I definitely fell in love with that team, on being real. But also it was just so fun to like be a part of like the game and go to the games, which is why I started to fall more in love with the A's and why I love that team. And it's also just super fun. I remember just like after the games, just going and like on the computer and Googling A's score or something like that. And it's like, whoa, that's news. I was there. It feels like you kind of made an impact. So that's kind of how it started in my infant days. And that's kind of how sports kind of grew upon me. Like, hey, I know this guy plays for the A's. He's famous. I just got to see famous people. It's kind of like that little kid mentality that you have. And honestly, it's just fun being outside. As Jake was kind of mentioning, the A's do it really well where they have fireworks. The promotions are really good there. You don't really find that in many other ballparks. The tailgating especially. That's something I haven't done that too many times, but I remember definitely when I was younger, I did that a little bit, not too many times, as I said, but that was super fun. I mean, it's just so fun to be a part of the game. And obviously I think baseball was also the first sport I played. I think that's like T-ball, whether it be T-ball or baseball. It's like, hey, those guys out there are the best at what they do. I can be one of those guys. It just gives you some guys to look up to. And I think that's how a lot of people do it these days with their sports and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think with being an A's fan, like you said, like, seeing famous people, but all that. But like when you go to the games and like growing up, especially, I just vividly remember going to like day games during the middle of the summer, and there's like 3,000, 4,000 people at these games. And it's like you feel like as an A's fan, you are like one of the few. And it's just such a like builds kind of a community thing with the people who are fans and who do show up every day.
Oh, it's a very strong community.
Yeah, so that's like one of the special like things that kind of bands all A's fans together.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like the thing with A's fans is it's the Coliseum. It's kind of a pretty bad stadium if we're being completely real, but it's all the people who want to go to the game are people who love the A's and want to go to the game. And one thing, I think one of the earliest stories that kind of like made me realize this is a big community. This is a story that I honestly do not remember that much, but my parents tell all the time. This was a game back in 2009 maybe. And I think they were playing the Colorado Rockies, and they were just getting. This is when they made the World Series, maybe a few years after that. But they were just getting smoked. The A's were, and everyone's kind of just out of it. And little me, just right here, I was hearing the "Let's Go Oakland" chant all game, and I was like, where did that go? So I kind of started. People are like kind of joining in on it, and then soon enough, the A's kind of rally back, and they didn't win the game, but it was just super fun. Like, damn, I felt like I had an impact on that game. That's how my parents kind of describe it to me. And although I don't remember it, it's like they keep reminding me about that story all the time. So I think it's super cool to just have that impact on a community. I feel like it's a small community where you can really like have that impact on, and you've seen it throughout the years, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when I got introduced to it, we went to spring training a few times, and that was super fun. And like autographs, when you're a little kid, it's like a game. Like you're trying to collect all the autographs and get these like players to notice you and all these things. And it's like, I would.
It's super cool when they do that too.
If I didn't get to the game 2 hours early, I was like, oh my God, like I missed out. Like, what's even the point? So that was definitely fun. I don't have like a specific, I guess like a funny story is the first time I tried to get autographs, the A's were playing, I think it was like the Yankees, and I ran down to like the very front, and I'm like, whatever, like 5'4" maybe. And I just started peppering this guy in an A's uniform. And I'm like, please, can I have your autograph? Like, I've never gotten an autograph before. It means so much. And the guy just looks at me and he's like super confused. And my dad comes and he's like, that's the bat boy. Like, wait for someone else.
Damn. That's funny.
Like, I don't know what position he plays, but like
that's super funny. But no, it's just a dream to just like be watching these guys. It's like it's guys you can look up to. And I think that's what I really found with the A's. And I mean, obviously there's been some many moments over the years, and this is kind of why I said at the beginning of the episode, let's take more of a trip back down to memory lane. Just talk about some moments that really made you A's fans. And I think it's really fun to just reflect on these stuff. I know, especially for me, like I always just love telling these stories. Being a storyteller is a big thing. So I think definitely, I mean, I think I said top 3 moments, but we can just say how many what you want. Jake, just give me one moment for you. We can just alternate back and forth that like really made you an A's fan. I'm going to say my best for last, but you go ahead with whatever you want.
Yeah, the part that I'm thinking of, the first one I've written down, it's not really a specific moment, but it's something that I think is very specific to the A's that is, it's not like super important, but it's the reason that I'm probably more of an A's fan than I am. Like, I'm a diehard Raiders fan. I don't really care about the Warriors and all like some college teams, but the A's, I feel like we had such like vivid moments and like things in time, like movements almost like the Coco, the Bernie lean. Like we had like when Cespedes played, we had all those like walk-offs, and that was like our big thing. We had Reddick with the pies. Like he dressed up in the Spider-Man costume. Like we had so many things that like the Sean Doolittle, Enter Sandman, Metallica, like, and everyone would bob their heads. Stephen Vogt, I believe. Like
the Grant Balfour, the Balfour Rage, that's another one.
Like I've been to a lot of other ballparks and seen a lot of other teams play, and they don't do those things. They don't do it the same way that we do. Like there's some things like what I remember the King Felix with all the K area, the whatever the King section,
whatever that is.
Judge with the wigs and the gavels, like that's pretty cool. But like those are such specific and I like moments. And I feel like as an A's fan, we've had so many of them, and that just does show like the community and like the right field bleachers that still has right field Will and like all
there's a ton of guys over there.
Like I don't know, it's just that's like what being an A's fan is, and it's like kind of that community. And I know that's what I keep saying, but like that's really what it is. And unless you're an A's fan and like get to go experience those games, you're not really going to understand.
Exactly. And I think one moment for me that kind of backs off you, and this is, I did not attend this game. A lot of the moments I wrote down are for games that I attended, but this is one moment I could watch over and over and over again, is when Grant Balfour came in the 9th inning at the end of the 2012 season when the A's were about to clinch the division. And, you know, one of my favorite movies is Major League. And my favorite scene in Major League is when Wild Thing comes out, Ricky Vaughn comes out of the bullpen, and the entire crowd is going nuts. And looking now at that years later, it's the exact same thing. Like Grant Balfour just comes off the mound and the entire crowd is losing their minds. Like the A's were supposed to be one of the worst teams that year, and they're about to win this division over a team that's made the World Series, the past 2 World Series. They're about to do this. And the fact that we swept that series is just unbelievable. That has to be one of the greatest series in A's history, where they just absolutely dominated that series and just took the home division. It worked out so well. And I mean, that playoff run, even though it fell short, I mean, Coco's walk-off that playoff run was insane. I think the one of my favorite moments just watching on like radio, like watching the radio clips or something, is after Coco's walk-off, Ken Korach's giving the call, and then Ray Fosse just screams like over Ken Korach. That just sums up the excitement of being a part of the A's community. And I mean, that 2012 season was absolutely magical. In my opinion, 2018 was even more magical. I think for me, in my opinion, just because it resonates with me a bit more because I remember it a lot. And I think my favorite moment from that season is I think I have 2 with you. First off, when we were down, it was like 10-0 to the Rangers, and we ended up winning.
I remember that game vividly. I remember I was watching the game, and because obviously I'm a teenager in these days, I have to be watching and doing something else. So I'm watching Pirates of the Caribbean on my like computer, and I mute the game and it's just on in the background. And then I look up and it's like, whatever, we're down like 8. And every time I look up, I'm like, like we could do this. Like, and I shut my computer and I turn on the TV, and it's like, oh, that game was just I
remember you and I that was the year we like worked out all the time training for water polo, and we just kept talking about that game and over again. I think the other game that year that really stood out to me was actually the game I went to with you. It was late in the season. We're still going for a playoff run. I think we're playing the Twins, maybe. I don't really know, but it was we go there, and I think it was a very close game. The stadium was packed. It was a Saturday night, and we just walk it off, and like we're down a few runs towards the end, and we walk it off. Someone stole home to walk it off. There was a pass ball to steal home, and I was like, "Damn, we can really do this." And like I think that was probably my favorite game that year. That was just stuck out to me because I was at that game, but like that moment in particular was like, "Damn, this team can do anything. This team is cruising." And I mean, it's a team of guys. It was a team of no names. Like you had. Like, who the hell was Ramon Laureano? Just this random guy comes up, and now he's killing it. I mean, yeah, it was crazy just that season. I think those are some of my favorite seasons, and that's kind of what I'm hoping can happen. This is kind of why I love these years, like 2021 going into 2021. We have no expectations, and then we can shock the world. Will it happen this year? I don't really know, but never say never with the Oakland A's.
Yeah, for sure. One of the second moment I had was very specific, and it was actually earlier in the game that you talked about with Grant Balfour. And I don't know if I can share my screen or anything, but the Josh Hamilton dropped fly ball.
Oh my God, I remember watching that.
I mean, that was just incredible. Wait, let me see. I don't know how to.
I can pull it up real quick. I just have the image of it. Hold up.
It's everywhere on YouTube. If you look up Josh Hamilton drops fly ball or Josh Hamilton air, and it was just like Hamilton was one of the best players in the game at this point, definitely the best power hitter, and he goes and just right in front of him. I can't say how much, like it was an easy fly ball, and he looked into the sun, and then I just remember vividly his interview.
He just drops it, and it's just like
he's like, I have blue eyes. Like, I can't see. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you play baseball for a living. Oh, my God. Like,
I mean, this is one of the greatest plays. He just completely drops it. You can just see him behind those sunglasses, behind the hat, just like his soul just leaves his body when he drops that. And then everyone around him is going nuts. I mean, that has to be I remember watching that. That was a big inning. We had that here. Jake has the video right here.
Can you see this? I don't know.
I can see that. We can pull it up real quick. Oh, I just removed you. There you go.
Lovely.
But
am I good?
Yeah, you're good now.
Oh, perfect.
This is like
I'm Nathan, and I'm a StreamYard user. For the last 6 years, I've been live streaming.
Here we go. This is what he's saying.
Drop the ball. And the score is correct. And the score is true.
And then we take the lead.
The brakes on at second.
It just that moment just gives me the chills. Like,
oh, it's unbelievable. That has to be one of the best moments. Just that when I watch that game over and over again, like that's one of the moments you always have to watch. I remember during COVID, during like the big lockdown in like early 2020, they were playing that game on MLB Network, and it came on. And I was just like, oh boy, here we go. It's about to happen. So that has to be one of my second favorite moments. I think the best one, and I really like this is just undoubtable. I've talked about it a lot on Twitter. Dallas Brand's perfect game. I mean, I was there. It was just unbelievable. Just all around. Like that was the moment I realized, wow, baseball can be truly a magical sport.
Yeah, I mean, I have that signed poster of him with the fist pump like that in my room. Like, oh.
It's unbelievable. It's crazy. But I mean, no, baseball is a magical sport, and the A's have really made it that way for me. And this is why, they kind of built my love for sports. I mean, it's all started with the A's. That's how I kind of built on all those other sports and all my passions for sports. Now I'm here trying to go into sports media, and it's like, it's the A's started it all, man. Yeah, they're always going to be right there.
My last thing, it's another one that's not a specific moment, but it's something that only A's fans will understand. And I feel like it's a little weird to talk about, but like the players that we have that are like they're career A's, but they're not at the same time. And I feel like that's something that no other team has. Like Adam Rosales, Jed Lowry, Brett Anderson. Like we'd have these guys who would like leave for 1 year and then come right back and have a great year and then get paid $10 million and then come right back. And it's like, look at Trevor Cahill's numbers at the Oakland Coliseum and look at them anywhere else. That's why that guy has gotten paid like $40 million in his career, is because he has a 2-point-something ERA at the Oakland Coliseum and like a 7 ERA when he's pitching in any other stadium. It's incredible.
It's crazy. And I think the one thing I've also noticed is the players who like are just true baseball nuts just love Oakland. Yeah. And I mean, you saw that with Cespedes, how devastated he was to leave the A's when he got traded, and how devastated. I mean, I'm still devastated about that too. And I bet guys like Mark Canha seemed pretty upset that he's not going to get paid, obviously, as a Met. But, you know, overall, I mean, A's baseball is truly one of a kind. I really don't think you can find any – I really don't think you can find any culture like the A's have with their fans and their players anywhere else in America. I truly believe that it's the best culture in America.
I mean, it's unique. I mean, I feel like it would be wrong of me to say best because I am such a biased source. I feel like it's the best. But you can't find it anywhere else. Like the way there's, and I feel like that's something that I will be, as excited as I am to get a new stadium, it will be a little like down because I have so many memories at this last stadium, and that is kind of the A's underdog mentality. It goes along with their stadium.
Wherever I will be living, whenever the Coliseum closes, I will be at the last game of the Coliseum, no matter what happens. I don't care how much it costs. I will be there. Well, that's going to wrap it up for episode 5 of the Corcoran Cap. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at @_Sam Corcoran. Follow the other guys on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on Spotify, make sure to share it out. Do all you can. Let's start growing the brand a little bit. We're having a lot of fun here. 5 episodes in. I cannot wait to bring you guys more. And Jake, I mean, you and I are going to have a ton of fun once the season starts.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's probably going to get delayed at this point. I was hoping we would get some breaking news, but it'll start. It'll start soon.
It'll start soon, and you guys will not want to miss out. But that's going to do it, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.